we have roll call, please?
Howard.
Here.
Perkins.
He's here.
Green.
Here.
Swisher.
Here.
Guthrie. Thompson.
Here.
Brandt.
Here.
Cook.
Here. We have a motion to adopt the agenda and a second.
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good on there too. We're good. Okay, we need to approve or correct the special session minutes of April 26, 2023 and the regular session minutes of May 1st, 2023. Need a motion and second for that, please.
Move to approve as submitted.
Phil seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, business from the audience time. We try to keep it to 3 minutes. Give your name, address, and realize that most of us are available outside the meetings if you need to call us as well too. But anybody want to bring anything forward to the council?
Tom Ward, Ward 2. I see on tonight's agenda there's an executive session, so I'd like to make a comment on that unless you want to reserve that for a later time.
Whatever you prefer, you would be recognized later if you want to do it later.
If that's what you're saying I can do, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you can.
All right, I appreciate that. Well, I'll move on. Well, like any citizen, they have the right to redress their government, to ask questions and to get answers. And I'd like to solicit some answers from the council and the city administration, to include the city clerk, city attorney, and the city administrator. And if you would allow this, or let me do the asking of the questions, or if you want to ask the questions, Mayor, then however you want to do it. But I've got to run through about 7 or 8 questions here. So if anyone present that I have mentioned will confirm their knowledge of any violations of the Sunshine Law during the year 2021, 2022 by the then City Council. Now, granted, some of you guys weren't here, but some of you are. So do I have a response to that question?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The question is, will anybody confirm their knowledge of any violation of the Sunshine Law during the year 2021 or 2022 by the then City Council?
I'm not aware of any.
Anybody have anything on that?
Did anyone participate in a meeting that were in violation of the Sunshine Law in the same time period? You've got some people there that might be thumbs up and then thumbs down now. They were on the
No
council.
response.
Appropriate. All right. Did anyone participate in a meeting in 2021 or 22 that they were not sure they were in a legal meeting? Ms. Brandt? Okay, I thought you were getting ready to say something. Is anyone aware of city council members meeting in groups of 2, 3, or 4 in city business discussed in the years 2021 or 2022? All right. Since no one seems to recall any of that, I'll do the recollection for you. The special session meeting of September 21st, 2021 at 11:30 for the sole purpose of going into executive session or closed meeting under the state statute 610-021-3, hiring, firing, discipline, or promotion of personnel. Obviously, nobody recollects who that personnel is about to do that from that meeting. Are you aware that using the word personnel is not an enumerated reason in the Sunshine Law for going into a closed session? All right. This statute the city relied on to justify closing the meeting has 5 references to employees. It has 0 references to personnel. So that's how your minutes and your agenda made that distinction. So what I'm getting to is that you had a meeting on that date, and it was misrepresented as an employee being disciplined. And that's not what took place, and you all know it. And it probably wouldn't surprise anyone to know that the meeting was reported in the paper. Mayor Schwetz announced the resignation of a council member of Ward 4, and it was effective September 22nd of 2021, which coincidentally is the day following the special session. So I don't guess anybody remembers that being in the newspaper. Furthermore, the minutes that were available state that there was a roll call vote taken, and that is in the public record. Well, what's not in the public record is there was no motion to adjourn from the executive session or return to open session. It appears the city council never adjourned the meeting, or this information about the closed session was omitted. Also omitted were any votes taken during that meeting. So I bring this up just to make you aware, as I've tried to do in the past, and obviously nobody's looking at it, nobody cares about it, but maybe you will in the future. There is still time for any citizen to go to the circuit court and file a petition with the court for them to adjudicate this. And I think the city attorney can brief you on all the steps of that. Secondly, there was a recently approved employment contract for the city administrator. Question I have is, was this contract approved without the performance evaluation being done? Does anybody have an answer to that? You guys can speak. This isn't a one-way conversation. But your silence is very telling, all right? Is the renewal contract valid if the initial contract was breached because the performance evaluation wasn't done? That's something you need to ask yourself. And why was it even done before it says per the contract in June? Then you have a ordinance on the agenda for records retention. I just got some questions before you jump in. Pass an ordinance is what records are or will be held longer or retained longer than the applicable retention schedule, as it says in the agenda. So you plan on holding on to some records a little longer than what the state says you have to. Will a list of the records to be destroyed be made public in advance to their destruction? That's something else that I'd like for you to consider. And will there be a process for citizens to request a record be retained? Something else I'd like for you to consider. So that's about all I got, unless you'd like to
Tom,
question me.
those can be dealt with between the first and second reading, so we're going to proceed with the first reading tonight. We can discuss the others.
That'd be wonderful. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. The first one will be Community Development and Code Committee, Council Members Cook and Allen.
Don't really have anything to say. No, we updated all the codes, I think it's the last meeting or the meeting before.
Right.
So there's that. We've got the May meeting, and it's going to be on May 24th at 8:30, right here. And then we've also got the June meeting scheduled for June 28th at 8:30 in the morning, right here. And that's when we'll go over and find out about the number of any violations or building permit requests and things like that.
We'll have that open to the public. We'll have it listed on the website.
It's open to the public.
We'll have it listed.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Anything else on that? Okay. My two guys right here, Public Relations and Public Safety Committee, Council Members Guthrie and Perkins. Any report tonight, gentlemen? Charles says no. Okay, we're good. Municipal Services and Personnel Committee, members of Brandt and Thompson. You got quite a bit, Danny, I know.
Yeah, tonight, just want to announce, we're going to have a pre-construction meeting with our contractors that do the slurry and not chip and seal, but mill and overlay, coming up this Wednesday to make sure we're all on base on that and know what everybody's expected of, and so we can get the word out to the citizens when we're going to be doing what streets and try to keep everybody as best informed as we can. Just a reminder, we won't be having another council meeting before Memorial Day, so I want to remind everybody that the trash pickup will be postponed one day in every ward on that Monday. So Ward 1 will be on Tuesday, 2 on Wednesday, and so forth. So everybody's just basically postponed one day because of a holiday. Also, in front of you, we have something that the department's been working on, and that is the bulk item pickup. Something that we've done in the past where it's kind of been called the citywide cleanup or what have you, but this will be in June, so it's about a month away. It will begin June 12th. We will be picking up each ward kind of in the backwards order, so we'll be getting Ward 4 on Monday, and Ward 3 on Tuesday. So we're going backwards because RTS will still be picking up their trash. So we don't want both sets of this going on in the same ward on the same day. We're talking about bulk items. We'll be getting more of this information out to the public. Just want to kind of let you know it is coming. It's not starting tomorrow, so don't start putting your stuff out tomorrow. It is a month from now, but we'll let you know what kind of items are going to be able to be picked up, time frames, and those kind of things. But it will be curbside. Our street department employees will be doing the pickup, and there will be some additional compensation to those employees for doing that. So more to come on that. I don't know, JD, if you want to add anything today on that, or just that more info coming, and we'll be getting it out on the website.
Immediately, probably in the next 2 days.
Yes, next few days we'll be getting that out. The last thing that I have is JD will be introducing the individuals from HDR today are going to get a presentation on the airport. So,
certainly, thank you. Jerry and Eric, there you go. Council, this is Jerry Cyril and Eric Hansen from HDR, who are our airport engineers. The floor is yours.
Thank you much, and good evening, Mayor, Council. We're pleased to have this opportunity to visit a little bit about the airport. Several years ago, we completed an airport master plan. Some of you participated in that, at least saw the final product that came out, and following approval of that master plan by MoDOT and FAA, the next phase of that was to proceed with implementing several of the proposed improvement projects. One of the first projects, and if we have the slide deck ready, we're working on that.
We're having major technical difficulties. I apologize.
And I don't know which screen is going to be shown on that one. Once that pops up, we'll talk a little bit about that. But in the interim, the group of folks that we had participating in developing the master plan set forth a number of priorities. And just to give you a little bit of background, the airport here in Marshall contributes in a rather significant way to sustaining the local economy, which is driven in large part by agriculture. As you well know, you have a number of businesses here that are ag-oriented, processing, storage, and so on and so forth. And you look at the number of implement dealers and others, businesses in the area, you can see that the hinterland, or at least what sustains this community to a large part, is agriculture. And one of the key parts of that agricultural economy is provided through aviation, and in particular during the summer months, the number of applicators that operate from the airport itself. And it contributes to some degree of suggestion. And if we can zero in on a little larger image on that top one, which I know you probably can't see very well, but
It's bigger, but it's off center. There you go.
pardon?
I was just telling you it was off center. So there you go.
But there we go. Good, that's the terminal area within the Marshall Airport. And so those of you that are familiar with the airport, I think, can pick out some of the features. The runway is that, there you go, thanks. That helps a lot. That's the primary runway, and then just to the east of it is the parallel taxiway, which we call taxiway A. Then there's that white area with some T's in it, that's the apron area. And you'll see some lines, and that's how aircraft travel and move. And the other images that you see there are aircraft storage facilities, proposed buildings, the terminal building, fuel facilities, so on and so forth. During the summer months, that apron becomes very congested. In particular, there's these different businesses that operate out of there, applying product to thousands of acres within the county and within generally a 30-mile radius of the airport itself. Those acres and that operation and setup basically consumes the entire apron. And so coming out of the master plan then was a proposed concept is given the agricultural character of the area, let's create a separate area that we call an ag business park. And the city then acquired some ground, and we developed a concept. It phased over a 20-year period of time, but initially providing a connection, development, and staging areas to load product, fuel, both dry product and liquid, and provide security because most of these chemicals that are used are rather hazardous in some cases, and provide an access off the highway. So that was the number one, I think, priority coming out of the master plan. Is that correct, Larry?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to give confirmation on that. And so given that then, our communication then began with finding a source of funding. That source of funding really derived from the Federal Aviation Administration and is passed through MoDOT in Missouri, the Block Grant State, and to develop and start moving forward with that using what's called non-primary entitlement and most recently bill or bipartisan infrastructure funding. And I won't want to get into all the buzzword acronyms, but the bottom line is that's where we presented and argued to MoDOT that because of the number of aircraft operations, the significance of this sector of the aviation to the community, then that is the number one priority, as Larry attested to. MoDOT, though, has a different view of the world than some of us that live in rural areas, and that is they thought that that parallel taxiway was a higher priority. And they base that on what they call pavement condition index survey, in which you, in your particular case, was ranked at, on a scale of 0 to 100 of 49, with the cutoff and with reconstruction or rehabilitation suggested and recommended if it's below 60. So while MoDOT has no problem with either the ag apron or the taxiway, they think any funds that are available should be invested in that parallel taxiway. And that parallel taxiway has a price tag of approximately $3.5 million. So that non-primary entitlement and that bill money that we had hoped to use for that ag apron is now going to go to a parallel taxiway. So having said that then, it still then left us with one of the issues that have not really been addressed, and that is, again, the congestion on the apron. Just to give you a little idea what that pavement looks like on that taxiway, there's a couple photos, I think, back to back. You can see it's probably not the best looking pavement in the world. That is why they have stated that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide then. So to help understand this, they have what's called a ranking system, National Priority Ranking System. And I know you can't read that, but the black line way up on top, that is where the taxiway is. The line below it, that's where the apron is. So while both projects are eligible for the assistance, priority is given again to the taxiway, the higher number. Okay? So I thought that little graphic might help the council understand how some of these decisions are made. Let's go to the next slide. So that leaves us with a couple of issues. One is, well, what are we going to do to accommodate the aerial applicators that basically operate from the first part of May, end of April, all the way through the end of October into November? Because they start applying product in May, they end applying cover crops in the fall. So this business is a significant business to the agricultural sector. Not only does it benefit the productivity and yield and increase yields, but it also provides some environmental benefit just from the mere use of cover crops nowadays. And that's really a growing and expanding part of aviation and programs sponsored by USDA and other agricultural entities. So one way we can look at something is on the north side of that terminal building is we need to correct what was called the hot spot, but we also have a place to provide parking for 3 airplanes up there. So one of the things associated with this taxiway project, if we have to go that route, is we're going to ask MoDOT to participate in the cost of doing that to relieve some of the congestion. That is one proposal. Let's go on to the next slide. This particular slide shows some apron expansion on the north side of the existing apron, south of the terminal building, and you'll see a building just to the east of it, just the outline. That's the proposed hangar location for at least 10,000 to 12,000 square foot hangar. And then on the east side of that, Eric, if you would point to the area that's not shaded that we talked about earlier, or to the west off the ramp there, where we can pick up 2 more aircraft parking spots there. So right now, the 3 to the north, 2 off that area, we have a total of 5. And of course, we lose a couple with the building, but right now we'll have a net gain of 3. Now let's go to the south. And the next slide further down, there you go. We can move that entrance taxiway to the south. And now we thought today we would move it further south and bring it in on the center line extended. And the reason we would do that is we can pick up 2 more aircraft parking spaces there. And we can also accommodate any jet traffic, corporate jet traffic that will come in. You have a number of jets that do come to the airport. You have a number of businesses here that accommodate those larger jet aircraft. And they can come in, and you can see that yellow circle kind of line there, if you could point that out there. Excuse me, the aircraft could come in there, get their fuel, and then go park. So we think we would have a net gain of 5 tie-down spaces and request that MoDOT tie this into the taxiway rehabilitation project. Lastly then, not to forget the ag apron, which we think this whole concept of an aerial business park is a good idea over the long term, and it's a long time in development, that we would hopefully see assistance through USDA rural development to help develop that area ultimately to accommodate not only users at present, but also those in the future. So Eric's already advised MoDOT of our intent to utilize the existing non-primary entitlement dollars and bill money. And there's enough money there, approximately about $1 million in hand right now. That's really what we call the city's money, although it's your money. It's a non-primary entitlement. The word entitled means you're entitled, but not really. You're entitled if they approve it. That is to say. So, given that entitlement, we think then that we could move forward with design. We know there's urgency to address these aircraft congestion issues. And so the plan would be to move forward with design for the taxiway and these improvements that we just covered. Then pursue rural development funding for the Ag Apron, which would ultimately address long-term development needs. So that is kind of what we looked at today. We know there's opportunities out there to grow the airport, and one of the best ways to grow an airport is get more aircraft on that field, get active users, and when there is an opportunity in hand to accommodate a user, and the private sector is willing to make that investment themselves, saving taxpayer dollars, then it would be our recommendation to give that serious consideration. Because the more fuel you sell, the more activity, the better it is not only for the airport, but it helps sustain the airport itself. And FAA is all about sustainability. Generate enough revenue to cover the cost of operating the airport. That's where you want to be. So with that, Eric, make whatever comment you choose to make.
I think you covered it. I played my role as evaluates.
That was excellent. That worked out very well. We'll take any questions the council may have.
So what would we need to do at this point to move forward?
I think we would like a recommendation from the council as to your priority. If you concur with what MoDOT's telling us, taxiway A, and with these other improvements, that's what you would like to see, then that's the direction we'll go. And we'd also like you, or ask if you want us to pursue USDA assistance for the Ag Apron, because our intent is to do both projects, one with the highest priority being the parallel taxiway and the immediate aircraft parking needs, the second then being the longer term Ag Apron. Is that essentially it?
Yes. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I would move to do so.
Primary taxiway, secondary, anything?
To follow their recommendation, yes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I would agree. I would second. I don't think there's much option.
No.
From the past, from what I've heard, we've tried to do the opposite, but I think that's kind of where we're at.
I think since it's possible expenditure funds, we'll have a roll call on this one, Julie.
Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Oh, hold on a second. Joe has a question.
Got a question from Charlie. Just a second. Yes, Charlie? He's asked if we have to have MoDOT's approval on everything still, including things like solar panels and everything, or has that changed a little bit?
No, we still, anything that's on airport property or airport obligated ground, as shown on the Exhibit A airport property map, is considered obligated. And so once it's obligated, that coordination with MoDOT is required. So
That's a
solar
yes,
panels,
Charlie.
whatever.
Continue with the roll call.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
Perkins? Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie,
Guthrie? Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. We'll get on it.
See, get everything moving with MoDOT. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's all I have.
All right. Next, we've got Property Finance Budget and Audit Committee, Councilmembers Green and Swisher.
Yeah, did not see anything, Amy, is that correct?
Well, I gave you guys the report at our meeting.
Okay, I was looking in the email, I'm sorry.
No, I handed it to you guys at our meeting.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I was looking in the email I thought I got confused on that, I'm sorry. Anything specific?
No, it was just our percentages of revenues and expenditures, just to show where we were in the year. We're doing wonderful, by the
Okay.
way.
Yeah, I was focused on the email and not what you gave me now. And then also we have the ordinance coming later, we'll talk about that Mr. Ward referenced, that I sent an email out to everybody for destroying records, so. Yep.
We got plenty of time to discuss that.
Yep.
We'll get it straightened out. Great. City Administrator's report. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple brief items. As Councilman Brandt mentioned, we do have the pre-construction meeting with the street vendors this Wednesday. We've also got a meeting between the stormwater engineer and the street superintendent for Tuesday morning on the FEMA stormwater projects that are ongoing. The mayor and I are meeting this week with the school superintendent to talk more about some of their property issues and the ingress and egress from the old Hab Center property. And the mayor and I have been talking and kind of working towards the development of a request for proposals for the Fitz property, the old Fitzgibbons property, and that work will be ongoing and should be presented either to the committee or to the council at the mayor's discretion at an upcoming meeting. That's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions? Drew and Nathan, your committee's going to be starting to work on the Fitzgibbon properties and a couple other things. We're going to have a finance committee meeting about that soon, I think. Okay. Thank you. I don't really have anything on the mayor's report. I am going to, a little later on, recognize Mr. Ward again, and a little later on, toward the end of the agenda, during the council business, I'll recognize Mr. Martin. But I want to get the citizens' business done first before we get into any of that stuff. So we're going to continue now with our park director, Chad Unterreiner. You're going to speak to us on an update on the Parks and Recreation. Chad?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mayor asked me to speak about a month ago to give an update with what's going on at the park, so that's why I'm here. And so we will open the pool tentatively May 27th, Memorial Day weekend. The reason I say tentatively, due to the air temperature and water temperature, depending on how that correlates, we could have a little delay on that, but the pool is filled up, so as long as things warming up, we will be able to open the pool as scheduled on that. We do have family passes and individual passes we will be offering. So as far as shelters go, we've updated a couple of shelters as far as Battle Marshall and Seminole. They're open this year. And then as far as our programming goes with our leagues, we are partnering with the Y this year. That kind of came from our master plan of expanding our collaborations with the different entities. So they are running our T-ball and coaches pitch, and then Little League is running the 9 and up. And then we did expand our partnership with the conservation. We added 21 trees over at Peyton Park, which was a 10% grant. So, and then we also got our trees documented in the park and at Peyton through Mo Tree Source. That's pretty well what we got going on right now. We do have one FEMA project left over on Field 4 to replace the railroad ties. That should start in July or first part of August as far as construction on that.
Thank you, Chad. Any questions? Sounds good. Sounds like we're on schedule. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the discussion of the appropriate follow-up for the proposal for the Phase 1 environmental site assessment. This is regarding the old Fitzgibbon property. It's the Brunswick address, and this is basically to go ahead and get started on the environmental side of and then we'll have to have some money appropriated. We're going to talk about a little later on to pay for some engineering costs. So right now, I just need a motion and a second to proceed with those proposals.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Phil, you got anything? Charlie? Okay, we're good. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Good on that. Which, next is the Chamber of Commerce fireworks funding request. The last year, they requested $3,675, and they're requesting that same amount this year. Take care of fireworks, that's just part of their funding. It's about double that, and they're coming up with the rest of it. So do I have a motion and a second to approve that?
I so move.
Second. Amy, is this budgeted every year? Okay.
Awesome. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good, we're good. Everybody? All right. Now we're moving on to our ordinances. The first is the one we've discussed already a little bit tonight, and we'll have some further discussions. Excuse me. The first one is the ordinance concerning the retention of records. Would the clerk give us first reading by title only, please?
An ordinance of the City of Marshall concerning the retention of records.
Is there a motion and a second to approve this first reading?
I would move to approve the first reading.
Charles? Oh, Phil seconded. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie,
Gave us the thumbs up.
Thompson.
Yes.
Ordinance passed, first reading passes. We'll have the second reading in June 6th. The second ordinance is to obtain an environmental study at 868 South Brunswick Avenue. That is the Fitzgibbon property. Mr. Kerman, would you like to elaborate on that a little bit, please, why we need to have an ordinance for this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We've discussed during the course of this project that once Remco completed the demolition, that we would do a phase one environmental to try to determine if there's any tanks buried in the ground and things like that. We've reported to both of these firms, the firms that were responsive to this request, that we believe that the northeast corner may have a tank, that there at least appears to be a vent in that area, so they're aware of that. In this case, you got a bid of $3,000 from Terracon, who has told us that they could probably turn this thing around in about 10 days. SCI Engineering, they will turn it around, maybe not quite as quickly as 10 days, but for an additional fee. And then the Midwest Environmental, we did not get a request from, but I've learned that their engineer that handles these is apparently out of the office for an extended period of time. But we do have a good bid at $3,000 for Terracon.
That's okay. Yeah, go ahead. Could we have the first reading, clerk, by the title only, please?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the City of Marshall, Missouri to obtain an environmental study at 868 South Brunswick Avenue in the City of Marshall.
Is there a motion to approve this first reading?
And this will allow us to move forward with developing that area?
That would be happening after this environmental
This is the first thing we have to
study.
do.
Right.
Okay.
Kind of typically, if you have a piece of property that changes hands, or if it changes uses, phase one is recommended. Isn't that correct? I mean, I've been dealing with them at Course Lab and out there, so. And then if they come back and they say we recommend phase two, and you do a phase two, if they say we think everything's clean, then you move on, so.
Right. That would allow us a chance to develop that property. Yeah.
I would so move the motion.
Is there a second? Mr. Cook? Have we got anybody online?
Got it, Phil.
Okay, you can stay right there. Can we have the clerk? Oh, there's Phil. Hi, Phil. I'm so amazing how he moves around. Okay, can we have clerk call the roll, please?
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
Oh, no, she didn't have Anne Marie, that's you. Sorry, well, get a little more expected tonight.
Is he gonna do a thumbs up?
You should be able to. I apologize.
Oh, you're doing fine, don't worry, don't worry
I know
about
how to use the
Oh,
computer.
I see him up there. Bill, are you thumbs up on this, or?
it. How do you vote, Bill? Anne Marie, will you get them, you got a way of communicating with them otherwise?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Okay.
I don't think the volume's on the TV, Marie.
No, it's not.
That's how his technology's great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, technology.
Your mic is muted.
Here I am again.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. Bill, how do you vote? Can you hear us, Bill?
What?
We're voting on
Most of that.
to start the developing the site of the Fitzgibbon Hospital. First reading.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie,
Charlie, can you hear us on this one? I don't think we've got him. You have to be absent.
I'm trying to get him on the line here.
That's okay, we can proceed.
Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
First reading passes. Next, the last ordinance is the appropriation ordinance. I'd like to ask Kirk to give our first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
I'd like to motion a second to take a second reading, please.
I move we take this to a second reading.
Second.
Clerk call the roll. Clerk call the roll, please. After giving the second reading by title only, please.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie, Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins.
Perkins?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Can we have the clerk give a second reading by title only, please?
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
We have a motion, a second to approve that. Second reading, please.
Second.
Okay, clerk call the roll, please. Do you want to read that again by title only, just to be on the safe side? Thank you.
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
Roll call.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie,
Charles? I think we're going to have to go ask.
Easy.
Oh, I said yes.
He said yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Okay, now we're to other council business. I think I'll recognize Mr. Ward first, and then we'll move on to any council members, and then we'll have Mr. Martin speak. So, Tom, if you'd like to, anything further to say?
Sure, I would, I see on the agenda that it's legal actions, and I guess it'd have to be disclosed, is this got to do with a employee or a elected official as far as the closed session?
We'll let Mr. Martin answer that when he speaks.
Well, let's have an answer.
I'm going to speak in just a second.
All right, then fine. I don't have much more to say other than I'm going to assume that because he's here, it is about an elected official, all right? And you're trying to close the session for legal reasons, whereas the whole thing has been sold to us as an administrative hearing. The only thing legal about it is you've got attorneys, lawyers, legally here to administratively guide you through an administrative process to an administrative hearing of impeachment. So I don't think that going into closed session is appropriate. I think it'd be a blatant violation of the Sunshine Law. So I'm sure you have other opinions about that, but I would forego the whole meeting is what I would do in closed session. If you can have charges read against an elected official in open meeting, then I think you can have the open meeting when you adjudicate the charges. So, and if you think that closing the meeting is to protect an employee from retribution, well, you're closing the public out of a meeting. The public isn't seeking retribution against an employee, and retribution is not an enumerated reason in the Sunshine Law. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Elected officials are not employees. They don't fit into the Sunshine Law to close the meeting like that was taking place in September of 2021. And we all know that. But nobody will talk about it. Nobody will be honest. So what's important is what you guys do when no one's looking. I've said that before. So go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Well, before Mr. Martin, he's going to be the last thing on the agenda. If there's any other council business, we'll deal with that first, then we'll go with Mr. Martin.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Well, so I know we're going through a trial, and that's going to be all right, but my questions still have to deal with how we got to this position. So on December 19th, 2022, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Marshall, Missouri, to execute an agreement between the city of Marshall and Paul Martin Law LLC for the provisions of legal services was given a second reading by title only. Mr. Green asked for clarifications on the types of legal services to be provided. City Administrator J.D. Kerman said records requests are an example. They'll provide additional review, if needed, on legal matters relating to general municipal law. So as of May 5th, the city of Marshall has spent around $13,255 on a prosecutor, not on records requests or additional review on legal matters relating to general municipal law. So I just have, Mr. Perkins, did you know you're hiring a prosecutor to investigate a sitting councilman? Did you know of any of the alleged charges against Mr. Green? Did you know that you were hiring a prosecutor to investigate a sitting councilman? Okay. Mr. Green, did you know that we were hiring a prosecutor to investigate a sitting councilman? Did you know the alleged charges against you that evening?
No.
All right, Mr. Thompson, did you know we were hiring a prosecutor to investigate a sitting councilman?
Be honest with you, I don't know what we're doing.
Okay.
It's getting old, and we're just, I hate to say this, but we're wasting more time on this when we should be moving on forward. If this don't get cleared up, I'm stepping off, and I will say that in front of everybody, because we're not doing Marshall no justice. I'm getting tired of hearing all this crap. I could do something else. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Brandt, did you know that we were hiring a prosecutor to investigate a sitting councilman?
I knew we were hiring to compile more information because of information requests.
Okay. Mr. Cook, did you know we were hiring a prosecutor?
I did not.
Okay. Thank you.
I knew that we had had a bunch of records requests in between Mr. Taylor and Rust or whatever. The notion was that something come up that they were involved in, that they couldn't look at it again, so we needed another outside counsel available to look into such things in those regards to those access record requests.
Okay. So, in my mind, it seems like we hired a prosecuting attorney without knowing it. We're spending more than $13,000 plus, especially since Mr. Martin's here this evening, without having full direction and knowledge of what we're doing. So, I do have a question. Mr. Martin, who's your point of contact?
Might as well come on up now.
My client's the council, and I respond to the council and the staff as appropriate.
Well, I do understand that, but directly, who do you email and contact? Or who do you directly talk to?
It just depends.
Have you not been getting his email from him?
I have, but I also haven't got the emails in chains of being part of asking for more information or disputing against Mr. Green on all these rebuttals.
Could I suggest that it's not my place to suggest this, but I would say that this kind of discussion at this point isn't terribly productive, and what I have to talk about tonight may be moving this issue forward, and I would like the opportunity to do that. If you want to continue on having this discussion, I'm happy to do that too.
Okay, well, so has Mr. Taylor been a point of contact for you during any of this investigation?
Mr. Taylor, Josh Taylor? I have talked with Josh about the case, yes.
Okay, well, that should be conflict of interest since he's actually involved in this. Have you also been in contact with Mr. Kerman?
Yes, sure.
Well, he's also in conflict with this case against Mr. Green also. So, as far as I understand, no special work session or executive meetings have been called to discuss any of the investigation on the original prosecution for a sitting councilman or the approval to investigate any new changes against Mr. Green. So, I don't understand what authority anyone's acting under because none of this business rolls across council's desk or their chain emails or anything of this sort. So who is advising all of this show? Because I really feel like most of the council's in the dark on what's going on.
I'm not. I know exactly what's going on. We had complaints against Mr. Green or somebody complained to either Mr. Taylor or Mr. Kerman, and they hired this guy to look into them because there was complaints from employees about a sitting city councilman. That's something we wouldn't want to look into ourselves because, regardless of what we found, people would be able to say we were either covering for him or we're covering for the employees.
Well, then why wasn't the true...
I'm talking now. So he's an unbiased, basically, investigator. He looked into it, he gathered the information, he presented us with a list of charges. We got those charges. We decided to have an open, public hearing where he could lay out the evidence that he gathered to support the charges that he made, and then Mr. Green and his attorney, if he wants one, or just him, he could lay out his evidence to refute that. That's what we're doing. All this other stuff has come up because I don't know why it's come up, but the easiest and most transparent thing that we can do is to have this here. Have it in here, have it in public where everybody can come and see what's going on. But you guys are muddying the water when you keep saying nobody knows what's going on. The people that are claiming not to know what's going on don't want to know. And they won't listen to someone if they tell them the truth. What's the truth? The truth is what I just said. We had complaints from city employees against the city councilman. And this public thing is going to be, if Drew's right, it's going to be as much to his benefit as it is to anybody else. If he's not right, then we'll know it. If he is right, then we'll know it. And we'll have to deal with whoever the city employees were that made spurious allegations, if that's what indeed happened. But I don't know. I don't know the evidence. I don't really know. I haven't asked Green or anybody what's going on because I'm going to be basically on a jury. And if you've never been on jury duty, you don't know what's going to be presented before you walk into the courtroom.
Just go ahead and launch it off. So, but that still doesn't, and if the city and the city council was hiring Mr. Morton to be a prosecutor and look into the case of Drew Green, then why wasn't that brought forward immediately instead of being advised as records request and provide additional review on legal matters retaining general municipal law? Like, it just wasn't straightforward at all. So it seems to me that we've hired a prosecuting under false pretenses. So I truly believe that should make this contract with Mr. Martin null and void on the fact that we hired him to provide legal advice and services the city council's requested, yet nobody truly came out to request for the prosecution, especially not publicly to the citizens that were going to go use public money to go after a sitting councilman. So I understand that we're here to the point of this trial, but I don't agree with how we got here. And I understand I want to clear all this up and get out of this because I hate this drama, but I don't want this to ever repeat.
Thank you, Mr. Swisher. Any other comments? Mr. Martin, have you got anything else to say before we vote on executive session?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. First off, Mr. Board.
Yes, sir.
Administrative hearings are legal proceedings where rights are adjudicated. Mr. Green's rights, staff's rights, who've made complaints.
So you say. You're an attorney, so you say. I'm a citizen, so I say.
Well, I was trying
All
to
right.
answer your question, sir.
And I'll tell you something else. If you require us to leave, that's another violation of the Sunshine Law. You all on the dais are supposed to retire to chambers to discuss your closed business, if you go that direction. I advise not to.
So, I just wanted to clear that air.
That doesn't clear anything.
Tonight, I was going to do a more detailed presentation regarding the status of the disciplinary proceedings. But I'd like to forego that. I had an email from Mr. Green's lawyer, and we had a telephone call this afternoon, in which case we had a very positive discussion about possibly resolving this short of a hearing. And because of that discussion, and because of the fact that my preparation for the hearing's been delayed as a result of other matters, both with the City Marshal and other clients, I will have a very hard time being prepared by May 24th. So I would like to, unfortunately, for some, I know, postpone the hearing. I do have positive hope about the possibility of a resolution, and I'd like to pursue that with Mr. Green's lawyer. So I'm asking for two things tonight. Number one, a motion from the council to postpone the hearing date until such time as we find that it's necessary to have it. And number two, request the closed session for attorney-client communications pursuant to 610-021 of the revised statutes of Missouri. I believe that is on the agenda. And in that closed session, I would like to include Mr. Green and excuse all staff so that we can have a council lawyer discussion.
To the first point, is there a motion to postpone the hearing date?
I would make that motion with the caveat that we actually go ahead and pick a date, but we push it out a week, 2 weeks, a month, because I feel like if we just leave it open end, this thing could just keep dragging on and dragging on.
If I recall, there were some problems with your on-call schedule, so when would your next opportunity be?
Well, that's not just for me to say either, because that involves my attorney and his scheduled hearings and appeals.
We can always postpone it again, but I'd like, if we can come up with a date.
Yeah.
For Mr. Cook.
I don't know that I can give Mr. Cook an answer without speaking to my attorney, so
Okay.
I would suggest if we're going to do that, and then have to turn around and do another one, that you just do like Mr. Martin suggested, until such time as we can agree and they can discuss between one another, and that's, I don't really have much of an opinion on the matter. I just would have to default to Mr. Martin. He's your guide.
Mr. Cook, I respect what you're saying very much, but Mr. Kenny, Mr. Green's lawyer, has very much on his plate right now, and his immediate availability over the next month is very, very difficult. So with that, I think postponement is what we need, and I will, if we need to pursue this, I will ask you to pursue it, and I will push on it. Get a date.
Could you restate your motion again, please? That's good.
It's gonna be different.
Okay.
Then
We don't have a second, so you can make anything you want.
I make a motion that we postpone this thing until such a time that we need to reschedule.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, to the second part, Mr. Brandt, do you have a motion for an executive session?
Yes, I make a motion we enter into executive session concerning legal actions, causes of actions, or litigation involving a public governmental body and any confidential or privileged communications between the public governmental body or its representatives and its attorneys, with the meeting being adjourned after completion of such session.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We need to have a roll call.
Oh, roll call, okay, all right, let's do that.
Let's do that.
Guthrie,
Guthrie? Yes.
Thompson,
Guthrie?
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
He said yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, this means that the meeting will be adjourned. There will be no further open business meeting here tonight. You're welcome to stay, and I'll come in and talk to everybody afterwards, but there will be no official council meeting after this particular session. So we're adjourned into executive session. We're going to be going into the conference room.